Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Back to School Night. Wow, what a huge crowd we have tonight. Happy to see that. So during this presentation, I'm going to explain to you all the English Language Arts Common Core Standards for third grade this year for your children. Hope you enjoy. Alright, now during this presentation, we're going to examine the English Language Arts Common Core Standards in reference to third grade, your children this year. Our goals that I want to achieve by the end of this presentation is to make sure that y'all all understand the purpose of the Common Core Standards, and I want to explain to you all an overview of what they are for third grade. And I'm also going to give you some quick examples so you can practice this at home with your children. Before we get into the presentation, I just want to get a little warm-up questions for everybody. And if you know the answer, you can raise your hand and participate. And I would like to get as much participation as possible throughout the presentation. And you can raise your hand at any time to stop me if you have any questions. But the first question I want to ask is, has anyone ever heard of the Common Core State Standards? And also, why do you think the standards are important? Okay, the first thing we're going to talk about is the purpose of the standards. The Common Core State Standards are a clear set of shared goals and expectations for the knowledge and skills students need in English language arts and mathematics at each grade level so they can be prepared to succeed college, careers, and life after graduation. The first standard we're going to talk about is called fundamental skills. And for this standard, students will gain a working knowledge of concepts of print, alphabet, principles, and other basic conventions. So students will be able to decode words with common Latin suffixes. For example, television. So tele meaning distance and vision meaning to see. So you see how we broke down that word into two, brought it into one, so the student would know the Latin suffix. And also, students will read grade appropriate irregularly spelling words. For example, for third grade, horse, cherry, butter. So your students will know the understanding of them words and how to spell them. And this is just a little reminder. Review with your child their spelling words as much as possible. And also, you can see here, I also have a little example of a worksheet that a student can practice on and things that we do in the classroom for fundamental skills. The next standard we're going to talk about is reading informational text. So this standard, students will be able to read, understand, and respond to informational text with emphasis on comprehension, making connections amongst ideals and between texts with focus on textual evidence. Students will be able to explain the point of view of the author after they read a short story. Students will use information gained from the text featured to demonstrate understandings of the text. Students will be able to compare and contrast the most important points and key ideals presented in two texts on the same topic. So as you can see here on this little worksheet, it's a little short story, and then I will have the students answer questions directly related to that short story. The next standard we're going to talk about is reading literature. Students will read and respond to works of literature with emphasis on comprehension, making connection among ideals and between texts with focus on textual evidence. Students will be able to determine the central message, the lesson, or moral in literacy texts, explain how it is conveyed in the text. They will also be able to describe characters in a story and explain how their actions contribute to the sequence of events that happened in that story. Students will also be able to explain the point of view of the author. So here you will see another little worksheet that I put on here is from one of my students in the past. The student read the story and just answered questions about that story so I can make sure that that student is understanding what he or she is reading. The fourth standard we're going to talk about is writing. Students write for different purposes and audiences. Students write clear and focused text to convey a well-defined perspective and appropriate context. So students will be able to develop the topic with facts, definitions, details, and illustrations as appropriate. They will write opinion pieces on familiar topics or texts, and they should be able to introduce the topics and state an opinion on that topic. As you can see in this worksheet, I have a picture, and then I want them to write out in their own words key points of what they see in this picture, and then I want them to write a short summary of what the whole picture is about. This is their opinion and what they see in the picture, and they're putting it into their own words. And finally, the fifth standard, speaking and listening, which I think is really important. Students will present appropriately in formal speaking situations, listen critically, and respond intelligently as individuals or in group discussions. Students will be able to ask and answer questions about information from a speaker, offering appropriate details. Speak in complete sentences, when appropriate, to tasks and situations in order to provide requested details or classification of what they just heard, and determine the main ideal and supporting details of a text read aloud or information presented in diverse media formats, including visually, quantitatively, and orally. So in other words, I will always, in all my classes, I like group discussions and also individual discussions where I might put small group of students, 3 or 4 in a group, and let them talk and listen and speak amongst themselves to come up with a conclusion of what the short story that they read was all about. Or we will have a large class discussion where they can ask me questions about the story, I will ask them questions about the story, and we'll have a discussion. Here are some extra resources that you can use at home to help your child better understand the Common Core State Standards. All right, and I just want to thank you all for coming tonight to Back to School Night. this is our presentation, and I wish all of your students, and just remember, I am here at any time if any of y'all need any answers or questions in reference to the Common Core state standards. And we're going to have a great year this year. Thank you all.